Today on Ask the Oracle podcast, our title is Enchanted Journeys with Mama Fairy, Unveiling the Divine Magic of Motherhood. In this enchanting episode of Ask the Oracle, we welcome the delightful Marie Brandon, also known as Mama Fairy. Marie is a real-life fairy residing in Newcastle, New South Wales. She shares her journey of creating magic in the mundane and empowering women through her work as a birthkeeper, teacher, and women's circle facilitator. Marie has recently authored The Most Stunning, The Divine, a pregnancy and birth oracle deck, inspired by her profound connection to spirit and the transformative experience of motherhood. Tune in as we explore the magical realms of women's circles, mother's blessings, and the wisdom of her oracle card deck. Yay. Hi, Marie. How are you, my love?
I'm wonderful after that beautiful introduction. You've nailed it. Thank you so much. It's so lovely. So
Oh,
lovely.
you're very welcome, my love. Yeah. Now, I know that we have a lot in common because I'm a fairy at heart, and I've been kind of following you on Instagram for a while because I really resonate with your connection to the elemental world, nature spirits, nature, motherhood. I'm a mother and a grandmother. So I really feel a connection to your work. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. So amazing. You never know who's watching. Someone
That's it.
who authored the Oracle card decks on your shelf could be watching.
I love that. So let's dive deep into these podcast questions.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us about your journey from Miss Fairy, from Maiden Fairy to Mama Fairy, and how it has influenced your enchanting work today?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a great place to start. So, for those that don't know, I was Miss Fairy. I am Miss Fairy. I was Miss Fairy. I had fairy shops and birthday party venues in Adelaide, stage shows, school holiday programs, you name it. I traveled everywhere as a fairy and always felt super, super connected to fairies, but also children and nature, and was always creating these beautiful events for children and traveling around medieval fairs and that sort of thing. So that was my role as Miss Fairy, and Miss Fairy wasn't ever a persona. I used to say that to people, they would see me out in the shops in my pink fairy car and they'd be like, "Oh, I thought your hair was a wig." And I'd be like, "No, that like I'm not." And I was never sort of putting on a persona when I was Miss Fairy. Miss Fairy was me. She was a teacher
Yes.
fairy. And at the time that just worked. I never people would say, "Why are you so big?" I'm like, well, because I live in the human world now. I'm a teacher. I'm here in the fairy shop so I can make magic for all of you. And that was never questioned. You can't lie to children. They know, they're so wise and so intuitive. So yeah, that was my life as Miss Fairy. And I always knew I was going to be a mum myself, but I never really, when you're in that maiden life, you're not really thinking too far. Well, I wasn't. I wasn't in my 20s. I
Yeah.
wasn't really thinking. I just knew I would have them, but I never really gave it much more thought than that. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and reflection and integration. But I knew I would love being a mum, that it was probably going to be a bit hard. And, at some points, I never really thought about it. And the journey, I hope, well, we've got some time, but if I get this background out, all the rest will make sense. But,
Yeah.
my business changed a little bit and I moved to New South Wales, Newcastle, and I was like, am I going to build it up again, build up my business, performing and doing parties and things? Am I going to do that again? And I had shows booked and fringe shows booked, but the world, came undone in 2020.
Yes. Yeah.
and everything was cancelled. And so I was
Yes.
in a new city with my husband and my son. We had connected with my son before he was born on the night that my husband and I met. We knew him. We knew he was coming. We knew that he was always going to be ready to come when we called him in. And it's so interesting that even though I was able to access and have that experience with my spirit babies, or whatever you want to call, whatever term you resonate with, that didn't continue really for me when I was pregnant. And when I was pregnant with my son, I intuitively knew everything was fine, but I had never been pregnant before. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know about medical systems and processes. And then I went from being, really a healthy, normal woman to suddenly there was this wrong and that wrong, and I needed to worry about
Oh,
this,
really?
and I
Okay,
needed to
yeah.
worry about that, and I needed to worry about this. Now, I will always say that and it says it in my oracle deck on the forward, my son's birth was my awakening. And
Yes.
he came, like I said, he was eager to come at 36 and a bit weeks, just like the movies, just like they told me that it wouldn't happen, that it would not. That's usually not what happens. My waters broke with a gush, with a pop. And then within 6 to 8 hours, I pulled him up on me with the most transcendent,
Yes.
psychedelic, incredible experience
Oh,
of my
I've got goosebumps.
life. Like, it really was just,
Mm.
whatever we believe in, that I truly believe that pregnancy and birth and postpartum is a portal. And I think
Yes.
that the veil is thin and we're able
Yes.
to access, we're constantly told as women that we've got this power, we've got this divine
Yes.
creatrix power, but
Yes.
I hadn't experienced it. And of course, it takes some integration and reflection,
Oh,
afterwards,
yeah.
get to that point.
Yeah.
My son's birth was just incredible, and I was ecstatic. I was elated. It was the best thing that ever happened. And I became a mum of one. And I started to sort of think about birth because, of course, once you have a birth like that, you're like, again, again, again. I want to do that again. I will do that every day of the week. And I thought I would have, and I know this question is about how I became Miss Fairy to Mama Fairy, and it's almost there, I promise.
Do you know what I believe too? I believe, that we should be celebrating that rite of passage for women, and all the rites of passage for women. So I love that you explained it as a portal. And
Mhm,
I love that your awakening was euphoric
mhm.
and almost ecstatic and kind of like very spiritual. So I totally get that because I was the exact same way. Fortunately, I had the most beautiful births as well. Yeah, no, please continue with
Uh,
your story. Yeah.
I was wondering that. I was like, should I ask you before, because about your birth, but that makes my heart sing that you had really lovely births
I
too.
did. I did. I was one of those women that had visitors almost directly after I'd
Yeah.
given birth,
Mhm.
like, and I
Yeah.
just love that. I call it the beautiful mess and the beautiful noise, even, it's just such a beautiful, I totally agree. So I had a very similar experience. I know not all women do,
Mhm.
but I definitely did. So I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always knew I would have another child, but it wasn't until quite before she was conceived that and it's funny, my children seem to connect a little bit more with their father beforehand, which is so bizarre if you knew him because he's um 25 years military. He's not
Yes.
really that what you're imagining maybe, and he always has a bit more of an insight, and I always wonder about that. Maybe men sometimes don't have as much sort of noise or fear around things. I don't know.
They're very practical and pragmatic. And I
Yeah.
know we shouldn't stereotype, but
No.
I just find they're very grounded. They're
Yeah.
very, this is what I need to do. Um, really, that's really beautiful. And, even that military background to me is that, can be that warrior energy, which is very spiritual anyway, I think.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
protector
the
and
protector.
it makes sense now that, you see my daughter with her dad, he knew, and I was like, "Oh, a girl." And then as soon as he said that, I knew she was coming, and she came again very quickly. That was conceived the next moon. It was just absolutely magical, the conception, but that's a different podcast. No, I'm just joking.
Welcome to the pleasure zone.
Yes, the fairy wand wings. So,
I'll have to get you back on. We definitely need to
I
just
think we need to
to
have a cuppa one
explore
day.
that a bit more. Yeah.
No, no, no. It was magical in a spiritual sense, and
Yes.
then I, realized I was pregnant, and the journey for me in this pregnancy was different in that I had, I guess, done a lot of that work and done
Yes.
a lot of that unlearning, done a lot of that
Yes.
remembering, and that
Yes.
looks different
The
for
remembering, I love that.
well,
Yes.
for me, it was a remembering. My body remembered, my son remembered,
Yes.
my birth. Often,
Yes.
when women, there are some women who have traumatic times during their birth, and that sort of propels them on a spiritual journey.
Yes.
Totally acknowledge that, alchemy
Yes.
of fire, to remember and unlearn. There were definitely intense moments for me along the way to conceive my daughter.
Very ebb and flow like the moon, isn't it? For me it was like, the peak, the peak of the contraction was always that, that yeah, the ebb and flow. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and so you get me. So for me, I'm an all or nothing kind of person.
So am I.
I had that pregnancy, outside of the medical paradigm. That was just what was best for me and my family. And then I had her in the bathroom in a very different labor experience. I didn't think it was real. Again, my husband with his wise knowledge was like, I think she's going to come as at sunrise. And I was like, no, no, what are you talking about? I'm going to be doing this for days. But he was right. He was so right.
Yes.
And she came. It was a bit different labor, a bit more intense in the back. But I, I think I said before, my son's birth was my awakening, and my daughter's
Yes.
birth was grounding. She's a Virgo, and
Right.
hear her. I could hear her teenage voice when I was pregnant, and I could hear her. I can hear it now, and it's, calm down, mum. Everyone has a baby, just
Yes, that
it's
kind
not.
of earthy,
Yeah.
practical magic,
Just,
the very kind of like, I've got a daughter like that. She's incredibly amazing. She's an Aries. She's a real firelighter.
yeah.
And of course, I'm Piscean and I'm a water witch, so I'm always floating around in the ether. And she's always like, come on, mum, no, no, like she's very good at like anchoring me back into that sacred now, into that kind of like, yeah. So another, yeah, interesting thing that we've got that in common as
I
well.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
maybe I know you of your daughter Beck. She does incredible
yes,
things, but
yes,
I'm an Aries too. And she recently presented at a business thing that I was on and said, something that I'm going to touch on about my deck a bit later, but about that fiery energy of the Aries and that creator energy where you're supposed
yes,
to be like you are tending to your baby and birthing your babies and feeding your babies and all of that, but then you've just got this creator inside of you that's just like
oh, she
creating
is
more.
driven with that,
Yeah.
that creatrix energy of, the motherhood, not just birthing babies, but birthing spiritual assignments, yeah, yeah, without a doubt, yeah. And she's always been very motivated anyway, but yeah, she's also really super smart, which is very handy.
Yeah,
Very handy. Yeah.
that's the Aries, totally.
She's been telling me what to do since she was about 2, like and she's still telling me what to do because she's my spiritual business coach as well. So, and we definitely have that healthy boundary there. So, so yeah,
So I
Love
love that.
it.
Love that. Well, then you totally understand that energy of, and her name is Pixie, which
I
is just
did notice that her name was Pixie.
that my husband told me her name. No one will, I was like, first thing I said was, no one will believe you. No one will believe you that your mum, who's since passed, liked that name. No one will, Miss Fairy is going to have a daughter called Pixie. Anyway, we did. And that, even those moments, that is the journey, by the way, from maiden to mother, from Miss Fairy to Mama Fairy. It was around when I was pregnant with Pixie that I changed my Instagram handle from Miss Fairy to Mama Fairy. So that's when we see a lot more of the growth if we're looking at algorithm stats. You don't have to. But that's when I see a lot of that growth, because I, for a long time, thought that I had to leave that magic behind. I wasn't
I
Miss
get
Fairy
it.
anymore, and I wasn't a fairy, and I didn't know
Yeah.
what that looked like
Mm,
as a mother.
mm.
Fairy is very much that playful, maiden time of your life. I
Yes.
thought that meant I had to find, I didn't really love my teaching job. So I was like, well, maybe I just have to find something, a bit more grown up, a bit more mature. It actually took me throughout her pregnancy to sort of remember that, hang on, that magic that I was creating is actually me. That's me. I'm still her,
Yes.
constantly evolving. That sounds so obvious, but it took me, in that short, it took me a couple of years, it's almost 3 years between my son and my daughter. So it took me a long time to kind of realize where I was going,
Yes. Yeah, I get it.
what that looked like.
Yes. And do you know what, too? It's so interesting that you explain that, because I know women that have never had children that have that mother, that mother energy, within them. It could be, fascinating stuff. Yeah.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is. Because, they're obviously the archetypes that I'm using as a pillar personally. But yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. There are, and
Yeah.
there are mothers who will stay in that creative energy
Yes.
forever, and they just sort of, it's not even a thing, that adjustment is really easy and
Yeah.
normal. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't think about things too much, but for me there was a really
No.
obvious distinction, and that's sort of what led me to the cards, because I've always loved cards.
Yes. Let's talk about that. So, what
Yeah.
inspired you to create the Divine, a pregnancy and birth oracle deck? What
Mhm.
was that process like? What was the conception? What was the, the growing, the birthing of this beautiful deck? Because, um, you know, I know how much work, I know how much heart and soul and life force energy goes into these incredibly amazing oracles. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so now that I've given you that beautiful background,
Yes.
I've got this beautiful baby and I've got this fire lit. I'm grounded, I've come back down to earth, but I'm wondering sort of what's next. What can I do? And I'm not suggesting postpartum women sit there and do that, but you often see young new mums. They're
Oh,
like
no, I see
starting
it all the time.
businesses. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a thing.
And it is that summer, how like the empress of the earth, the mother, is summer, is that blossoming, blooming, beautiful big energy. So of course you're going to attract that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And you're reborn.
Yeah.
After every birth, there's that rebirth and that rediscovery. We're evolving all the time. I'm still in it. But for me, it was very much, I was feeding a baby, adjusting to a mum of two, and just going, what can I, scrolling along, and I saw someone had put out an ad on Facebook, and it was like, create an oracle card deck in like 2 days or something. And I was like, what? No, you can't. No, no,
How
you
ludicrous.
it
Oh my
was.
goodness. Can you
I
imagine what it would
really,
look like
I
or what it
really
would
hate,
be? Yeah.
really hate marketing like that, and I was hesitant to bring it up, but what it did do for me was, I'm an Aries. I'm very efficient.
Yes, very practical,
I'm very,
very
I can
organized.
get things done pretty quickly. But I
Yes.
was like, this is not real, and it's not real for people who might see that ad. I hope I don't see that ad again. But it was American anyway. But
I think
I
I've seen the same ad and I had the exact same insight. I thought,
Yeah.
Stop telling people this crap.
I know, because even yeah, no, you ca we're telling you, you can't. But what it was, it planted a
Well, you
seed.
could, but what would it be?
Yeah, well, in terms of, like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
because it was, I think, what the bit that yeah, no. Anyway,
No.
we'll talk about that
Anyway,
later.
yeah, yeah.
But it planted a seed that I was the girl, when I was 16, I was running around family events with my fairy card deck. I have got cards and I was like, well, if someone can do them in 2 days, maybe I can explore with some of my art and some of my creations how I could maybe put it together. And I really described this time of creating that deck. So my daughter is 14 months now. This was just around the time just before she was born, and then when she was born, that I was playing with it, playing with a lot of art that I had, like, played with.
I love that you're the artist.
Oh, because it's really easy. Well, not easy. I'm very busty, so it's very easy to, like, just do the big bust and the big belly on these women.
Yeah,
Like,
but how voluptuous,
I know.
how kind of like, oh, I don't know. And I love that you've done that. I love that they're ripe and they're curvy and they're
Yeah.
curvaceous and they're vivacious. And it's, to me, that really is that empress energy of the mother, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, so I was playing with those, and then I just thought I would, and I really call this time that I was creating through source, because there was a time when I was in the late editing stage where I and my daughter was approaching one, that I was like, oh, I wish it wasn't a pregnancy deck anymore. I just had that thought, thinking, maybe it would be more accessible to everyone. People might not want to buy it. So I went back and I tried to, like, and I couldn't. I
No, because
couldn't.
it needed to be out there.
It did. It happened
And it's
all.
coming through you, from you, for not just for you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I know you totally get that, but at the time, I didn't really think about that happening. I just, every night my children would go to bed, my daughter would be laying next to me on the bed, and I would get that laptop out, and I was just, and the writing and the writing and the writing and the
And I
editing.
find it fascinating too, because you're probably exhausted. You're
Yes.
probably busy,
Mhm.
right? I know they say if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But there is definitely something very spiritual about that drive, you
Yeah.
know,
It
to
it
to
has to be.
create, to
'Cause,
create. Yeah.
we would never recommend to a postpartum woman, obviously my
Yeah.
baby's older, getting older, not doing it when she's 2 days old. But, you know, I would never say that to a woman. You're busy enough, you're breastfeeding all the
Yes.
time, you're doing all of this stuff. But it was coming through me, and we went overseas, for a couple of months to the UK and Europe. And
Yeah.
every morning I would wake up because of the time zone, and I would have to do edits, and, like, it was, I just yeah, I just did it, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure how. I put everything in Word first, like,
Yes, I do that. I
everything.
write in Word.
Yeah, like, there wasn't sort of anything, everything was in Word, and,
Yeah.
everything copied and pasted. I did a lot of the guidebook design on Canva, and then I
Yes.
moved it to Adobe, which is tedious. I would always start on Adobe now if I was to do it again. You learn
Your
as
colors are really gorgeous too. So you've obviously got a really, you're obviously very artistic and very intuitive, but also very technical, are you? Can you do all the technical stuff too?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and I was a bit worried that the colors were a bit juvenile, again, that's that fairy
No, I
essence
love the
where I'm
colors.
like,
Yeah.
Is everyone gonna love, like,
I
my
love
favorite
the
card
colors, and I
was
love the consistency of the deck too, by the way. And what I need for you to know too is, like, I'm promoting my Moon Temple Oracle deck at the moment,
yes.
but I've also got two other decks in the pipeline. So
Yeah.
it's like, I know what you mean. It's like, the Moon Temple Oracle deck I started creating a couple of years ago, and it's just come out now. It's almost like, yeah, it's kind of like the timeline thing of, I'm promoting this now, but I've already done that, and I'm here. I'm really over there, but I feel like I'm back here, and so
Mm.
I totally understand that as well. So I can understand why you wanted to go back and change the whole pregnancy thing, but of course, I believe that an oracle deck has its own soul. I feel
Mm.
like it has its own spirit. And it'd be like going, okay, you need to change your name now. And they're going, well,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
No, and I think and that's that fear coming in as well, you know, that or that self-doubt that can present
Yes.
get to that end process. And, you know,
Yes.
your deck, my deck, they're beautiful. And I was like, "Oh, no, well, maybe when it arrives, it won't work," you know, or something, you know, I'm having these
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
someone messaged me yesterday and they're like and they're in New Zealand. Even they said, "Even the sound of the shuffle, the sound of your
Yes.
cards
I understand that.
finish on your cards that, you know, every
Yes.
detail is chosen, every little thing."
Yes. That's magic, right? I
How
call it layering the magic,
yeah,
and doing everything with conscious, deliberate intention, wishcraft, right? Having that potent focus and, layering the magic so everything is in alignment, everything is congruent and all of that. Yeah.
you totally get me. You totally get me. This has been really good, actually.
I
This has been
want to
really
ask you a question.
yeah, tell
Can you share some of the unique benefits and insights that women can gain from using your Oracle card deck? Because that's the big picture, isn't it? Like, it's a really pretty deck. It's very magical. But what's the deep kind of transformation that can happen with women when they work with your deck? Yeah.
Yeah, so when I was creating the deck and even when I was on my own personal exploration, I was thinking, how would I help women in the future? And I thought that that was being a birth keeper. You know, I thought that that was helping women in person reclaim their inner knowing and their innate wisdom and reconnecting with their bodies and their babies. And I did attend some births and help women, but it wasn't quite right. I loved it. Those births were incredible. You know, I would do it again. But once the cards came into fruition, like they started to become a
Yes.
thing, I realized that actually that energy or that, you know, because it all comes from a place of wanting to help people, right? You know, we
Yes.
create these beautiful decks to sit on the shelf. They look lovely on the shelf, but we want to help women, or I want to help women, particularly mothers, reconnect with themselves and reconnect with their inner knowing, because women know.
Yes.
We
Yes.
know, and the oracle has that open-ended energy. And for me, when I was pregnant with my daughter, it was a tool that I was able to sit with my cards, light a candle. Maybe I would have a question, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I'd just say, let me know what I need to know today. And it would just reaffirm or point me in the direction where I could just reconnect with that. And my deck has just one word on them. There are 51 cards in the deck, and they are words like courage, strength, mother. You know, they're very general words, but there is like dream, rebirth. I drew the dream card before I had this session with you, or this podcast.
Oh, really? I love
I
that.
did. And I was
Yes. Can we have a look at that card?
oh, yeah, it's
I know this is for some of you, I know, it's audio, but the
yeah,
deck
no,
is absolutely
actually this one was
stunning.
um I actually had help for a couple of my cards with of course I can't find it now. Uh, That's
So
probably
the
because I
beautiful
put it
dream card. So you pulled that one before we jumped
oh,
on
there it is,
today.
upside
Yeah.
down. So it is got inspiration from Uncle Aaron, who helped because I was a bit worried about how art could look when I am not Aboriginal myself, but it's a bit of a mixed race.
I've had that journey myself. Yeah.
It's yeah, so shout out to
And
Uncle
I
Aaron.
love that you're so respectful of that. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, being a teacher, I have some connections like that. But the dream card, it's funny when I was creating her, she
She's stunning. Look at her. She's beautiful. Love
and the
those colors. I love those colors, those real feminine, peachy, creamy, goldy kind of.
And you'll
colours,
notice
yeah?
on like every card, so there's always swirls and moons or
Yes.
stars and planets, so that they all have the same stars on them, the cards. They all have the same stars around the edges, but you will always see swirls. And I have the moon on the back because
I did notice that.
yeah, and I'll tell you, you know, in
I
the
love that. Of course I love that. I'm a moon lover, but yeah.
yeah, and you will probably know already, but you know, in the modern world, we count pregnancy by weeks. You know, you'll usually
Yes.
gestate to around 40 weeks. Not me though.
Yes.
I'm Spirit's favorite. I go early. But the in before calendars and things like that, we are as women, as you know, very connected to the cycle, and a pregnancy is 10 moons long. You usually
Yes.
birth around that 10th month.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an unlearning for me, or a relearning when I was pregnant. So I had to have, there was actually like 3 moons, because for some reason I'm always like, oh no, I need more than one moon. I like fantasize about a planet with more than one moon. We'll get into that another.
Oh, that's telling in itself. Yeah.
I know, like, because you can see where the other swirls are. I'll
Yes.
just like
Yes.
on there.
Love that.
But
You know,
there's
that
all,
ever evolving journey, that perpetual journey of the moon,
yeah.
you know, and even as we talk about going from maiden to mother to empress to wise elder, you know, all of that, you know, that kind of, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful journey that we go on, you know, and yeah, love it.
Well, the dream card, when I was writing the dream card, you know, of course, when we're pregnant, you know, we're dreaming about our baby, we're dreaming about how
Yes.
we're going to meet that person. And it does allude to that. But what was interesting is I'm not currently pregnant. And I was feeling a little bit nervous because I was a bit fangirling over you a little bit. Um,
Oh,
I was
that's
a
so
bit
funny.
nervous. I was like, oh no, you know, this is incredible. So thank you. Um,
Oh, you're very welcome. And,
so
you know, yeah, and completely reciprocal. Yeah.
well, during the dream card,
Yeah.
I didn't need to read my book because you know, that just told me everything I needed to know, and it was an absolute dream to be on your podcast, but also the dream of having decks and things like that. You know, it just really made sense to me. But back to the question about the pregnant person that might be using the deck, they're going back, being guided back to themselves. You know, maybe they've had an appointment, maybe they've had a blood test, maybe they're waiting on those results. Maybe they're sitting, you know, in the lunchroom. You only have to be pregnant in any office in the world for 10 unsolicited stories of trauma and horror.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Particularly in the last couple of generations, it's almost a rite of passage. So you've come home from your day at work, you've had another horror story from Joan in finance,
Oh my goodness. I know exactly what you mean.
and you're worried. You're worried.
Yes.
You're worried. You want everything to be okay. You know, and
Yeah.
hard. Pregnancy is a long time. I find pregnancy goes for a long time for me,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
don't even gestate long. You know, like some friends I have, they gestate till like the 42 weeks. You know, I can only imagine that. So then you come home, you have a little shuffle of the cards, maybe you have a question,
Oh, yeah. See?
you know, and that's what I wanted these cards. So
Like
initially I
reassuring, you know, insights, guidance, you know, beautiful. I love that. Yeah.
bringing you back to yourself. You know, I just, this is on
Yeah.
the clarity card, who's my
Stunning art.
girl. The clarity card, it was the cover girl. The calm was almost, but it's a bit bland. But the calm, it's not bland for those
I
listeners.
love that too,
Beige.
though.
It's beige. It's the beige mum card. This one. um, but these might be some of the words. And then in the guidebook, I have got, you know, as per normal guidebooks, there's a little bit of insight that you may not have thought of. But there's also 3 journal prompt questions as well.
Oh, I love journaling. See,
Yeah.
there's the
So
work.
yeah, and that's the, you know, because people would ask me, particularly when I talked about my births and my second birth in particular, people would say, well, how do you distinguish between anxiety and intuition? How how do you
Yes.
know that? And that was a lot of the work, the inner work
Yeah.
that
The
I did.
self-trust, the calm inner knowing, as
Yeah, and
opposed to the chaotic noise. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And that is something that I didn't really learn or harness till I was pregnant. That's what my cards are for. But then on a bigger scale, as we know, and what I didn't really realize when I was doing it, intuition is you've got this thin veil because you're pregnant, you're connected
Yeah.
to the divine, in my
Has
opinion.
to be. Yeah.
There's something happening.
Has to.
You're connecting with your intuition and your inner knowing.
Yes.
That just,
Well, your raw instincts as well.
yeah. And that's, that's the
Like, yeah,
innate knowing.
the earthing.
Yeah. And that's what, for me personally, I was able to then create the decks. And then on a spiritual level, I just felt that passage open, where I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay,
La,
what they're talking about. Some
la.
people like, my
Yeah.
family were just here for my daughter's first birthday, and they're like, well, can you pull some cards? And I'm like, like you used to at the family picnics, and we all thought you were crazy. And I'm like, can you pull some now? And my sister
Yeah.
who very love my sister, but very, very different personalities. And she's
Yes.
my whole family are police officers, so
Yes.
very much that structured, practical.
Yes.
And she's sitting there going, this is amazing. This is just
Aw,
what I needed to hear.
I
And
love that.
oh, and that is that missing piece. So that's how I would hope or imagine someone who's pregnant or not pregnant, early motherhood. They're really reassuring words like innate. But then of course I've got my fire card in there for like people like Beck and me, who
The
we carry this
firelighters.
a
Yeah.
lot, nourish, open, flow.
Yes.
Spirit is in there too. So
Of course.
rest, the things that we don't.
Rest is important.
And receive is a big one too.
Receive is very important because you're going to need to ask for help.
Yeah. So
You need
I
to
would
delegate.
absolutely. So they're all,
You don't have to do it all,
no,
right?
I won't. I just was going to say all of them you can see hopefully will resonate with anyone that's drawing the deck, but particularly pregnant people.
So, my love, I've got another question for you. So these beautiful women's circles and beautiful mothers' blessings and things, what role does nature play in that for you? Because I have noticed that a lot of your beautiful kind of soulful offerings do involve kind of nature and that elemental magic and all of that. Yeah.
Yep. It's strange because that was always just what it was going to be like. All my circles have been and are outside. They are all outside. If the weather isn't very good, I have a bell tent now.
Oh,
um
do you? I love that. Yeah.
yeah, because for me, I didn't even really think about it. That's just how it feels right to me. And
Yes.
so the women's circles that I host are always out in nature. They're always it's very basic, but they are all very connected to the seasons. And
Yes.
that wheel of time. That's how I like to, and that's
Beautiful.
always when I had fairy shops. The front window of the shop was always a season. I'm like, what can
Yes.
we put in the shop?
I
Oh,
do the
that's
same
awesome.
thing. I don't have a shop, but I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Can
you
I
know what I
ask you a
mean?
question?
Yeah.
When you talked about performing,
Mhm.
what did you mean by that?
Like like a live stage show of Miss Fairy.
I love that.
Yeah, no, you have, yeah, it was and it's funny, all of them it depended, but I had a program called Fairy School. Fairy School was
Yes.
very, very popular, very successful, thousands and thousands of children. I had like Princess Academy and things, but they weren't as Fairy School was the one to go to if you were living nearby in Glenelg in South Australia. I know there'll be lots of South Australians probably listening to this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that it was an icon, the Fairy Bay. See a different bay like your coast.
Yes, a different bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not Bateman's Bay,
Yeah, no,
a
not
different
Baker's
bay.
Bay.
Yeah.
Glenelg is the bay. Yeah.
Yes, I get it. I love
Yeah, so
that.
I would often do a bit of, and not just me, I had lots of fairies that worked with me, and we would do, I was a very silly fairy, so we would do, a stage show. We would often be in the middle of the shopping centres playing silly games, and it was
I was
almost,
just curious because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, because you do have that beautiful kind of fairy sovereign theatrical beautiful thing that you do. And I'm
and I had
thinking,
like white blonde hair, and, I always have
Yeah.
a tan.
I
No,
love, your mane of hair is just, hair is so spiritual, isn't it? I just love that you've got this gorgeous big mane of hair. It's
I know,
stunning.
and it's real now. So I never had real hair before. Like it was always like dyed and extensions. But thank you. This is all mine now. Thank you.
Gorgeous. I love it.
Again, it's that I had to reconnect. I had to remember. I had to remember so many things. And it's interesting you brought up the hair because that it was such a big part of my persona when I was 15.
Yes.
It really,
Yes.
really was.
So
So
do you have a particular goddess that you relate to?
no, no, I don't. Because
No.
I know I thought you might ask something like that, but no, I really do connect with Aries, which is terrible. I really do feel
It's not
connected.
terrible at all.
Not
It's
terrible.
fabulous. Yeah.
I know I should connect a little bit more. I am very partial to Celtic wisdom and
I got Celtic for you. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
that is something that I love.
Maeve and like, Morgan Le Fay and Avalon and I don't
Yes,
know. I
yeah, I
just
was gonna say Avalon actually, but I don't really know too much. So I've always been into like fairies and that
yes.
fiery energy of Aries, the actual god Aries.
Yes.
I do,
Yes.
but I'm not really like warlike or confrontational, but it's
No.
something
But
that
you know what, too? I do more when I was younger, but I still do. Like, I really connect to that huntress type energy of like, Artemis, Diana, so many around the globe. But yeah, it's fascinating. I've got another question for you.
yeah.
What advice would you give to women who are looking to reconnect with their kind of sacred power and their spirituality and their intuition? What advice would you give them?
Just it's very easy to say to a woman to trust your gut or to listen.
Yes, I know. I do it all the time, but
And it's funny,
how, Yeah.
I would like to say that now. Um,
Yes, I say it all the time, and then
I know,
they
me
go, "Well, how do you do that?" And I sometimes too, because we've got to remember too that because we do it easily, we just assume that by saying that people know what we mean.
yeah,
But actually, some people need a bit more guidance than that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and to that, I would say you already know, like, as a statement, you already know.
yeah.
Uh, but for me, someone did ask me once, what did my intuition feel like? What it was trust, actually. What does trust, the word trust, feel like? What does it feel
Oh,
like?
what
What
does the
color
word trust feel like? I love
feel
that.
like? And it was that question that I would then now say, so I would say, trust your intuition. You already know, but have a think. What does intuition mean? What does it feel like in your body?
Yes, yes.
The
And
goal.
if you
Yeah.
could imagine what it feels like too, because then
Yeah.
they might go, "Well, I don't know." And then you go, "Well, if you did know, if you could imagine,
Yeah.
what would
Exactly.
it feel like then?" And then they go, "Oh, yeah, I see what you mean."
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what, so I would encourage any woman who was wondering that you get me, you totally get me, but that's where I would start.
That's
And
a great tip. I love that so much. Yeah. What
that's
does
where I
it
would,
feel like? What does it feel like if you could have that really deep self inner trust? What would that feel like? Where would you feel it in your body, even? Like, have you felt it before? Like, I love that. I love that. So, my love, what's on the cards for you? What's it? I know you're kind of right in the middle of bathing in the beauty of your gorgeous new deck. But yeah, I'm just very, very curious. Like, are you kind of dream weaving at the moment? Are you kind of, yeah.
I know, let's ask the cards. No,
Love
let's ask
that.
the cards. Look, I am trying hard not to, because I have done that a lot, is to
Yes,
wonder
that's a good
and
question answer in itself.
worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have been sort of stuck, that maiden to mother. Now I've got this deck. What does that mean for me? How is that? I'm very lucky to live the life I do. Have two beautiful babies who
Yes.
I love, and we are very lucky that we spend a lot of time together, the four of us and our family,
Love that.
just focusing on that at the moment. In the future, like I
And
didn't
that is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is, because you can't get this
And good
back.
on you for realizing that. Yeah.
But I didn't know things like you can pitch to publishing houses. I didn't
Yes, you
know
can.
whole pages on the websites to submit that, I'm sure
Yes.
very lucky people that they look at, but I didn't know. So I'm still in that process of celebrating this deck, getting it out into the
Yes.
world. But I would hope that I might learn a bit more of those processes, and maybe get some mentors and some guides that can help me
Beautiful.
and see, because this feels right. This feels good.
Yes.
It feels, when I say my detailed history and when I think it, I'm like, well, of course, this is where you were headed. I connect with my higher self a lot. That's another
Yes.
piece of advice I would give. I
Yes.
do higher self meditations. I don't want to say often because I don't have time, but I do
Yes.
reflect
Yeah.
on my higher self quite a lot. She's always
Yes. Yeah.
smiling. She's always reassuringly going, yeah, she used to laugh at me a lot, but she doesn't laugh at me anymore now. It's more of a, like, not a mean laughing, but
No,
just,
no, no. Almost like you've got this kind of laugh, right?
yeah, like,
Like, yeah.
like, what are we even doing, Marie? Like,
Like, do we really have to go there again? Like,
yeah,
um,
going around
I
in
love that you
circles.
connect with that higher self wisdom. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Your higher self.
She knows where we're going, and I've got to, as we do in pregnancy and birth, but
Yes.
in life, we've got to trust and
Trust.
know that we're in
Huge.
the right
That
spot.
word's come up a lot the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I love, that you're, enjoying the journey. Being a mother is a sacred job and you do it so beautifully. And I love that you spend so much time with your family as well. That's so wonderful. So celebrating you and celebrating your deck. And I love that you're kind of bathing in that beautiful kind of energy of your gorgeous new deck. And really enjoying the journey of that. But also it's like, well, yeah, like learning from it as well. And mm, beautiful. And kind of looking for that, even an elite athlete needs a coach, even, I think it's so important to have a supportive community, that type of thing as well. So I love that you're kind of entertaining that too. So
Yeah, well, I wrote down in my little, book of my to-do list book thing, that we all have.
yes. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I wrote in there to do a podcast about my Oracle deck. This is before you messaged or anything.
There you
So
go.
I've really got to,
Master manifester. There you
yeah, I
go.
just need to remember that we can, yeah, it's good. Everything that is going to come is going to come, and at the perfect
Exactly.
time. So,
Exactly. And, allowing it and, you know, the beautiful sacred feminine is designed to receive. So
mhm.
softening and opening and allowing is such a beautiful energy to be in. And you've explained that in so many beautiful different ways. So
Yeah.
yay. So excited for you, celebrating you. I'm looking forward to, witnessing your journey and all of that. And thank you so much, my love, for being on today. It's been so magical, so enchanting. I hope to get you back on at some point soon. So yay.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a dream come true. Amazing. So good. Thank you.
Gorgeous, my love. Thank you so much.